our way through the Poirot series with the great David Suchet, and almost invariably, unless we know the story, we are completely mystified by the whodunnit part of it. And so it's usually a great mystery, whodunnit. And there's always the gathering of the suspects. And we, of course, during the programme, we've gone, well, of course, so they're setting us up, but it's this person. Or they're setting us up, it's that person. That person clearly has motive. That person clearly had opportunity. And we're invariably wrong. I'm not sure if we've ever got it right, but there we go, that's fun, isn't it? But then there are real life whodunits. And they're not quite so simple, and not quite so much fun. More than 20 years ago, Princess Diana died in a car crash in Paris. And yet we've never got to the bottom of how that happened. Shall we gather the suspects and have a look at who might have been involved with her death? The person who was blamed was a chap called Henri Paul, who was actually the driver of the car, driving very fast around the Paris ring road known as the Peripherie, and went very fast into this tunnel where she eventually died. And the official report is that he was over the limit with alcohol, although none of the witnesses said he was. So the official report is that Henri Paul is responsible for the death of Princess Diana. But who are the other suspects? Well, then, of course, there's the paparazzi. The paparazzi chasing the car, trying to get the next shot that's going to make them thousands on the front page of the Red Tops. Were they responsible? Did they goad the driver, Henri Paul, into going too fast for the condition of the road? Oh no, said the press, bizarrely. It's nothing to do with us. We had nothing to do with that. Or was it perhaps the authorities in Paris who had built the road tunnel? And you see pictures of it today, again, never built it like that in this country. No Armco, no crash barriers. A car can ram a concrete pillar, and that's exactly what happened. Maybe it's the authorities in Paris who are to blame. But then the one that's not in the room, the one that Poirot would actually pull out to say, but actually it's none of those, it is, are the public, us, constantly wanting better pictures of those in celebrity at the time. Diana, the most photographed woman, is no surprise. But who is buying those photographs? Those who are buying the newspapers, those who want more and more pictures, those who want more and more salacious details of her personal life. That would be those of us who had any sort of interest at all. Those of us who drove the paparazzi to do their thing. Maybe we are responsible. Formula One has started again. This afternoon, or at some point, because I can't afford to have it live, because I can't afford Sky Sports. However, I'm going to be watching whichever race it is this time round, and I must have forgotten about it. But which one is it? It's Japan. There we go. Someone over there who knows more than I do about Formula One. There we go. But we're going to be watching Formula One. But there's a great death that hangs over Formula One. That is, of course, the late and great Ed Senna. Maybe you don't know a lot about Formula One, the name means nothing to you. But if you're in the know, this guy was one of the greatest of all drivers. And his life was taken ever so suddenly from the world of Formula One in a dreadful car crash in 1994. Only seems like yesterday to some of us. And the pictures of the crash are truly dreadful. While trying to make one of the turns at the racetrack at Imola, instead of going round the bend, the car went straight on into the tire barrier, but went on at such a speed, something like 200 miles an hour, there was no way he was going to survive. Let's line up the suspects. How did this happen? Who is responsible for Ayrton Senna's death? Is it Frank Williams, the team principal, wanting better and better results to pay the sponsors back, to get the car on television, to continue the business? After all, as a team owner, he's responsible for paying thousands of people, and that only happens if the car's on telly and the sponsors are happy with their investment. Maybe it was Adrian Newey. This is a name, if you're not in Formula One, you don't know, but he has won more world championships than anyone else because he designs the best cars. And he designed that particular car. Was it his responsibility, shaving a few pounds here, get the weight down, and the car was then not strong enough to survive the impact? Was it Ayrton Senna himself? My heavens above, he was going so fast. Why was he going so fast? He's been chased by Michael Schumacher. He needed a victory. Maybe it was his mistake. Maybe again, it was us who are fans. Those who want faster and closer and more exciting racing. And that's what we were being given. Maybe it was me, and I mean me, as I actually touched the car before the race. So it always gives me a little bit of a turn to see the accident. Did I put the hex on it? Well, I don't think I did. So as you can see, much as Poirot can line up suspects and then comprehensively accuse someone with all the details that we haven't seen, in real life, it's much more difficult. The death of Diana, the death of Ayrton Senna, very high-profile deaths with a number of people in the fray. And what we have here, as Jesus comes before Pilate, is that moment. That moment. Who is responsible for the death of Jesus? Who is responsible for the crucifixion? And the suspects are all lined up. And in fact, just a few verses earlier in the same chapter, chapter 27 of Matthew, we also have one of our prime suspects, Judas. So let us assemble everyone in the parlour, work out their motivation, work out who is responsible for the death of Jesus. And sometimes they are the obvious ones. A bit like in Agatha Christie, we're led down the path to believe so-and-so is responsible. And the first of these is the one who doesn't quite make it to the parlour, and that is, of course, Judas Iscariot, the one who betrayed Jesus. The problem we have here is we have no understanding of motive. There have been all sorts of speculation over the years, but all the scripture tells us bluntly is that he did betray Jesus. He was paid for it, but threw the money back. So we don't know his motivation. We know he was part of it. We know he was a key part in the arrest of Jesus, which wouldn't have happened without his intervention, without, ironically, a kiss in the Garden of Gethsemane. Who is responsible for the death of Jesus is that Judas Iscariot. Who is responsible for the death of Jesus? The next one in the parlour. Would that be the Jewish authorities, the members of the Sanhedrin, Annas and Caiaphas, the high priests at the time, the ones who had orchestrated the arrest, the ones, and we look back in the scripture, had spoken of one man dying. They had plotted to get Jesus to die. The case against the Sanhedrin, particularly Annas and Caiaphas, is bleak indeed, especially by their own admissions elsewhere in the scripture, that it would be better for one man to die than for a whole nation to be destroyed. We have time and time again the evidence piling up against the Sanhedrin, the Pharisees and the Sadducees remarkably talking to each other for a change. Oh yes, the case against the Sanhedrin, the Jewish authorities, is very significant. And then there is Pilate, the most enigmatic of all the characters sitting in the parlour at this point. What do we make of Pilate? Here's the thing. He's regarded as a saint by the Coptic Orthodox Church. He and his wife are both saints. They have saints' days. And yet in other parts of the Christian church, Pilate is seen as the key mover in terms of getting an innocent man put on a cross, when he had the opportunity for it not to happen. He had the authority to say, this is not going to happen. Here is an innocent man, and I'm the one that decides. And we have, in the reading that we have here, and in the little film that Shell brought us, Pilate had a dilemma. He knew Jesus was innocent of the charges brought against him. He knew that it was a trick. He could see right through the high priest. But it's a bit more complicated than that. Let's go back to the high priest sitting on the sofa next to him. Why had they plotted to kill Jesus? Well, because of Pilate, bizarrely. Because Pilate was known to be ruthless in putting down any form of insurrection, any form of criticism or protest. He was known to have, in Matthew's words, mixed the blood of the sacrifices with the faithful. Those who had presumably come to worship at the temple were seen as a risk, and he had them all killed. He was known to be ruthless. There was definitely blood on his hands before he got anywhere near that bowl. And therefore, it was in fear of Pilate that the Jewish authorities said, we must get rid of this person Jesus, because if his following grows, particularly with all this stuff about Messiah, King of the Jews stuff, Pilate will lose his temper, particularly at this time of Passover, and there will be a bloodbath. In order to preserve the people, in order to keep thousands of people alive, we have to appease the Roman authorities. We have to deliver to Pilate the reason for the disturbance, such that people are not killed randomly. So Pilate, bizarrely, is the motivation for the high priests, because they knew he was ruthless. But we also read in the scripture that he cared about what was right and knew that he was being set up with an innocent man. Who else is in the picture here? The crowd. Oh my, the crowd. Now, actually, we're doing this the wrong way around, but that's how it kind of works. Because next week, we're talking about Palm Sunday. Not talking about, having Palm Sunday. And yes, we all get little palm crosses to wave, just in case you're wondering. You all get little palm crosses. But it's the crowd who are the people who cause me to scratch my head, and yet, having seen how crowds operate, maybe not. Next week, we will celebrate with the pilgrims coming into Jerusalem for the Passover. We will celebrate walking alongside Jesus, as the crowds did, shouting, "Great David's greatest son. How lovely on the mountains are the feet of him." You might even sing that. There we go. I was wondering what we could sing next week. The songs of ascent, going up to Jerusalem for the greatest, holiest festival in the Jewish calendar. And here in the middle of the crowd, someone who is receiving their praise and adoration as an answer to prophecy. So where are those voices now? Where are those voices where the same guy who rode on a donkey just a few days earlier, who received their prayers and adulation, where are the voices of praise now? In the courtyard, in front of Pilate's palace, as the guy is brought out to face them. Where is the adulation of great David's greatest son, Hosanna? It's not there, is it? Somehow the crowd mood has turned, become very ugly, murderous even. And even when they are offered the man's life, they refuse it and go with someone called Jesus Barabbas. Here's an interesting name, Jesus Barabbas. Jesus, Son of the Father. Jesus, Son of the Father. The guy we know as Barabbas has the same name as Jesus, the one who went on the cross. Jesus, the Son of the Father. Are we going to release Jesus, the Son of the Father, or are we going to release Jesus, the Son of the Father? And the crowd choose the one we know as Barabbas, the one we understand to be a revolutionary, a murderer, certainly not nice. Is he responsible for the death of Jesus? But who else is sitting in the parlour as Poirot goes round the suspects? As he puts his spotlight on and then dismisses each of the suspects. Judas Iscariot. The Jewish authorities. Not them. Pilate, this enigmatic, dangerous man who knew Jesus was innocent but didn't have the strength to save him. The crowd baying for his blood, or the substitute, Jesus Barabbas. The cross that is behind me represents the cross that Jesus Barabbas should have been on. And yet he went free. Who is the character in the story, not sitting by the fireplace now in our fictional Poirot, our fictional whodunnit? Who is the real party who actually caused the death of Jesus? The other person we've not mentioned is Jesus himself, who did nothing to save his own life. Stood in front of Pilate and went, "Yeah, I'm here." Gave Pilate nothing to go on, not a single word on which he could have signed his release. It's almost as if he wanted to go. And so he was flogged and sent out to be crucified. And I think we know who else was sitting in the parlour by the fireplace, squirming in the corner, hoping that the great detective isn't going to look in our direction and point out it's us. In this time, as we lead up to Easter, it's very easy to try and blame the characters in the biblical narrative. It was Pilate, it was Judas, it was the authorities, it was the crowd. If that's what we truly believe, we haven't got it at all. We have totally missed the crucifixion if we have not put ourselves front and centre of the crucifixion of Jesus. The time before Pilate is just a logistical thing. It's a diary appointment. It's part of a process that Jesus did not wish to stop, that Pilate could not stop, but we have started by our sinful disobedience. Unless we put ourselves down as the prime suspect and the guilty party, we don't get the crucifixion at all. If we're blaming Pilate, we're wrong. If we're blaming the Jewish authorities, we're wrong. If we're blaming the crowd, we're wrong. If we're blaming Judas, we're wrong. We're deluding ourselves. Could we have the next picture, please? This is a famous picture called Man of Sorrows. And I can't remember the artist, and I know the artist is disputed. And it's a picture of Jesus at the end of this reading before he is about to be led out to be crucified. In other traditions, particularly the Catholic tradition, pictures like this are used to meditate ahead of Holy Week. Those who remember the film, The Passion of the Christ, will remember that Mel Gibson was the driving force behind that, and he is a Catholic, and it was his meditation on the wounds of Christ put on the screen for us all to see. If you haven't seen it, but see it once. And look at the picture. The man about to be led for crucifixion, a man who has been mocked, had a royal robe put on him, had the pastiche of a crown put on him, a man beaten. I always look into the eyes of this picture. And I don't see blame. Here is a man who's already been executed nearly once by being flogged, about to go through 2 other forms of execution. And he's looking straight at you, looking straight at anyone who looks at that picture. And in his eyes, he's not saying, "This is your fault." He's not saying, "You are the one to be led away in handcuffs." That might be something we would meditate on. He's not saying, "Look what you made me do." He's saying, "This is my love for you, that I will go through this." Our fictional detective will not turn to the real suspect, because the words of love don't seem to be in their vocabulary. But when we look at Jesus, the man who let it happen to him, and then look into the eyes of the man about to die on our behalf, all we see is a man promising us that his love has not stopped. Jerry is going to bring up this.